How many times have you told yourself that nothing will change? How many times have you told yourself that that problem will never be solved? Or that you can never create something that you'd like to create? Or that other things around you will never change? We have this tendency to get so stuck in a sense of powerlessness that we don't even consider what we could try to do to change things in our lives and to change things around us. I mean, look at how we perceive things, even like the government, local government around us. It's something that so many people just kind of say, well, you know what, I can't do anything about it. So that's just the way it is. And you know what, I've made peace with that. Or when looking at how the economy works, you know what, it's so big, there's so much involved, there's so much invested in how things are now. I'm never going to be able to make a difference, so why even bother? It's just the way things are, and I've made peace with that. It's okay. I don't like it, but it's how things are. And then there's this other dimension where in our personal lives, it's like this underlying sense of being incapable of changing ourselves, being incapable of creating our lives. And also it's like, let me try and explain it in a different way. Let's say that we're not happy with our lives, with how things are, with what we're doing, how our relationships are going. Let's say a lot of parts of our lives we're dissatisfied with. But it's like we don't even consider that we can change things. We just kind of sit with this dissatisfaction and keep going the way that we've been going, and get more and more frustrated, more and more resentful, less and less content. But in all of these examples, the truth of the matter is that we do have the capacity to create changes. Yes, sure, we might not be able to create world changes. We might not be able to change our lives overnight, but we can start living differently, we can start doing things differently, and we can start thinking differently to start creating changes, even if it is in the smallest of ways. Now, in our personal lives, with those things that we kind of just automatically accept as they are, like, let's say that, I'll take an easy example. You're in a relationship, you're not happy with how things are going, but you're just kind of, whatever, it's fine, it can just keep going the way things are and whatever. And the point that can shift in those situations, in those examples of it's almost like we don't even feel like there's something wrong until something big enough changes that we realize, we look back and we say, oh wow, you know what? I was really settling for so much less than I could have been creating for myself, or I could have been creating in my life or my world around me. But it's like this complacency comes over us and we just accept things that end up being so much less. And I think that's a really honest reflection of the world around us, because things could be so much different, but it's like we've sunk into this complacency and this just acceptance that this is just how things are, and we just got to try and make the most of it, kind of, but not really, and just survive it. Maybe that would be a better term to use. So how do we change our perception and our perspective to start actually looking at things and seeing things for how they are, rather than waiting for something to happen to change that perception radically, like a big change. Because yes, sometimes, someone says something and you kind of click inside of you and you go, oh, you know what, actually I can relate to that. I have been doing that, and that's something I could change. But a lot of the time it takes something really big to jolt us out of whatever we've been doing or however we've been living. So from what I have lived in my life, I found that being open to considering that how I've been living, what I've been thinking, what I've been doing, how I've been speaking, the choices I've been making, what I've been accepting, that all of these things are open to being scrutinized in a way. That I need to be willing to reflect on everything that I do and everything of who I am to see if this is truly what I would like to create, or if there are things that I could change, if there are things that I could improve on, if there are things that I might have been missing or just accepting when they're less than what they could be. So that willingness is very important. And a lot of the time what we tend to do is when we see something that we've been doing and we go, holy shit, I've been living this way and I hate myself for it, or I hate how I've been living. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll switch to the extreme opposite and kind of rebel against what we've been doing to ourselves and prove that we're not confined to that way of living. And what that ends up doing is not much better, because then you kind of have to go through the other extremes and the consequences that go with that, and the relationships that sometimes can be destroyed by that, and the effects that you can sometimes have on other people's lives. So yes, be aware of and reflect on, who have I been? Is this who I want to be? Is this what I want to create? How can I be better? And within that reflection, practice the point of common sense and moderation, that you don't then flip to the other opposite end of the spectrum to prove to yourself that you're not trapped by all of these self-definitions. And the last point that I'd like to bring in here is how the difference between someone who creates the life that they want, so let's say extremely successful people, let's put it that way, people who had goals and did whatever it took to achieve those goals, and then compare that to the average person who basically just graduates from school, maybe studies a bit more, gets a job, has a family, but always dreams of more. The difference is the drive, that the level of work that gets put into creating that life. Because you'll often hear that people with those success stories, they dedicated themselves for years, sometimes for decades, absolutely 100% to achieving their goals. And most of us simply don't have that level of dedication. We haven't developed that within ourselves. There are things that when it comes to the practical day-to-day living, there are things that distract us. There are things that sometimes end up actually being more important to us. And I'm not saying that everyone should change the way that they're living and dedicate their lives to achieving their goals. The point that I'm trying to make is that with time and effort put into creating something, we actually have so much more capacity than we give ourselves credit for. And this tendency that we have to just feel powerless, to just give up before we even try anything, to make excuses before we've actually tested out doing things, that is most of the time what's actually really just holding us back, is just us. It's our perception of what we're capable of and how much we're willing to put into creating what we would like to create. And this is in our personal lives as well as the world around us, in our community, in our local government, in our country even. Okay, so I'm going to go to there for now. If you have any questions or comments, please don't be scared to leave your comment or to send a direct message to the page, and I will do my best to answer you. And if you would like to support the Get Real page, you can do so on Patreon. I'll put the link in the description, and I will see you next time. Bye.